Right, I think we are live. Okay. Welcome everybody to the final tribal council for season 1 of Familiar Survival Org. We started off with 20 players and we are down to our final 3. Tonight, Ed, Jester, OJ, all 3 of you will have a chance to plead your case to the jury, and one of you will be the very first winner of our org. So we're going to start off with opening speeches, and then we'll get into questions. So Jester, now's your chance to plead your case.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello hosts, hello juries. Hello everyone. Thank you for all casting me here. This game is very fun, very very out there, and very fun to be with. But of course, I will talk to jury. I want to say I played the most part is strategically of the game. On the first, I plan to come in this game to play under the radar and be quiet, but I cannot do that because my name was been out there since day one. Dinara targeted me from the first day, and I was like, I cannot do the under the radar game. I gotta talk to people, and I gotta manage myself to further in the game. And I was like talking to people and make bonds, make relationships. And that's what I got OJ, Megan, and Antonio to got in my side. I got that lock in, and we called ourselves Pineapple Express. And once the games move, we swap, and my name is still out there. And even Denaro was a target on that one. The reason I want to keep Denaro because Denaro will be the target before me. And after that, voting for with Denara, that gives me a lot of target moving to the merge part. And I was like, these people are lying to me. I gotta change my game. I don't want to be honest no more. I don't want to be like, oh, you're such a good player. Thank you for being nice. On the merge part, I start playing the game. I start planting seeds when Amy's boot up. When Amy's trying to ringlead all the tribe in the Swap Monica tribe, I planted it to the Swap Chandler tribe. Hey, she's running the tribe. She's bringing a tribe, and if we go again to the tribal, I might go home. I started to flip to the Swap Chandler tribe, and it did work for me. And I got the numbers for that, and every single player has talked to me after that. They want to work with me. They want to make sure that I'm with them. But every single vote in that tribal from Amy start point, they need my vote. My vote is the most important one because it's undetermined, and it's not like, hey, I already decided. They need my vote. And that's what I started to like flip my game up. I start to flip my alliances. I started to like be a villain role in this game. I accept the villain role in this game. Because I flip when it's the right time to flip. The first flip I did when the Avis vote. The second time I flipped when Antonio's vote. I already flipped on the Corey's vote on the 7, but Antonio used an idol, and I tell to them to the Antonio's crew, I voted for Corey so I can get information to the other side. And I tell to the other side, I voted for Corey because I'm with you guys. Both sides are telling me information. On the Elam vote, OJ was hella mad to Kyle. And I took that as an advantage. Kyle, I'm not mad at you. We both didn't tell our votes together, but I really want to work with you. And that gives me both information of both games, of both sides. And I took that as advantage, like who's our vote's gonna go from and who's their vote's gonna go from. So that for me, myself, I'm protected no matter what. And with the help of Kai, I gotta work with Ed, I gotta work with Megan, I gotta work with Christina. And apparently Christina go home by that time. And I still have the both information of both sides. Even though I flip Antonio, I make sure Corey is with me. I tell Corey, hey, I don't want the target on you. That's why I put it to Antonio. And Corey sees that effort that I try to save him. And that gives me on the final five, I have the perfect setup to be in the final three. Everyone in the final five said I'm on their final three. Odin said it to me. Corey said it to me. Kyle said it to me. And even Ed, whatever's the vote's gonna be, Ed or Corey or Kyle at that time, he's gonna bring me to the end. So I make sure I make all those bonds to make it to the final three. I know you guys have some questions, and I'm gonna let the other three to speak their speeches because I know that they have a good speeches on their game too. But I want to let jury knows if you guys are already decided, please be open and listen to our speech because we need some the good winners here, and I'm pretty sure that if you voted for me, you will get I'm gonna be like good winner too, and you're gonna get an honest answer whenever you guys get the questioning. Thank you and good luck.
Okay, thank you, Jester. Ed, you're up next.
Okay, let me set my timer because I talk a lot. Okay, 7 minutes. Okay. And I will be reading off some notes because a lot of shit happened. Sorry for swearing. So thank you, Jerry, for taking the time to hear my journey through this game. I hope you guys ask any questions or concerns about my gameplay and how I got here. I hope that just like Jester, I want to echo the same thing he said is please have an open mind, not just to me, but to him and OJ, as though I feel like we've had to fight in our own way to get here to the end. No matter what path we took, I think that it got us here. And I do think that you guys deserve the utmost respect from us because we're now pleading our case to you guys. So thank you for that. You can ask me anything, you can grill me, anything. I want to earn your vote. I don't want a sympathy vote. A lot of people told me that I pretty much they wanted to take me out because I was becoming a challenge threat and a threat to jury votes. But I don't come in here like being like cocky or anything. I think I need to earn your vote. Just like every individual immunity that I got this season, I had to earn that. I had to fight. And to me, this tonight is me fighting again. It's not a challenge, but it's basically me trying to encompass all the qualities that I needed to use and have in my arsenal to get me here to the final three. It has been a different journey for me, quite different than what I wanted to and expected to play this season. I almost didn't play just because of like a previous game. My reputation kind of like I got kind of like not attacked, but there was a perception of how I played, and that totally wasn't it. Like I was labeled a snake, and I wasn't a snake. Oddly enough, I think this game I was a snake, to be quite frankly. And one of the things that I wanted to do in this game was not lose any friendships. No pun intended to the theme of friends. But unfortunately, Survivor is a game of lies and deceit, and there can only be one winner. And I did lie. I lied. I backstabbed. I betrayed a lot allies. I, had to do what I had to do to get to the end. And I just hope that you can have an open mind and find it in your heart to at least hear out what I have to say because I've been working hard. I didn't get dragged along. I had to work for everything. I did outplay, outlast, and I outwitted. Like those three things from Survivor are the qualities that make a soul survivor. And I do think I had those. My game wasn't as flashy as other people, but I did what I had to do to get here. I also want to say that I'm checking my ego here at the door because I feel like you guys deserved an honest answer and you will get one. So without further ado, I'm going to start. And that was just basically the intro. So basically, day one, I was approached. I think we only had like a couple of minutes when they did the reveal. and I was approached by Austin automatically. He was like, "You're my ride or die." We had a previous relationship where actually I voted him out twice in two different games. So we always talked about wanting to work together, but we never had a chance. So he said he was going to be my ride or die, and I agreed to it. I knew Megan was at work, and I knew I couldn't talk to her. So I just sent her a hard hey. But I did tell Austin I wanted to pull in Megan to be our third. I didn't know what tribe I was being put in, and I was at work in my lunch break, and it was going to be almost over. So I quickly glanced at the list of people who were casted, and I was kind of shocked and pleasantly surprised to see a lot of familiar faces and new ones, like Kyle, Miranda, Sam, people who I've played with and had voted off. And so I didn't know coming into this game if they would hold a grudge or try to like extend that olive branch and want to work with me, play with the devil rather than the devil you don't know. So that's when Amy approached me and she said she wanted to work with me. And I went to Kyle. Kyle came to me, and we kind of basically formed a three because we felt good with each other. I told Amy I felt good with Kyle, and she said she felt good with Kyle as well. So that form, unfortunately, Austin and Megan were in a different tribe. So even though that was my three, the people that I talked to first, I was approached by Amy and Kyle. So I still had to worry about myself being an OG Chandler. I also knew that I didn't want to break a promise to vote out Kyle or Austin because I had done that before and I had burned them in a way. So I wanted to honor that, and I kept that, you know. Unfortunately, I had to vote out Megan not once but twice, and the second one was out of self-preservation. But more on that later. At the OG Chandler tribe, we went to one simple tribal council with Sam, and unfortunately, we all voted him out. It was an easy vote because he was sick. But the next tribal council, that's when really like the lines were kind of like visible, and it showed where I stood with some people in the game. I got 2 votes on the Canyon vote, and I did struggle with the dilemma of wanting to vote out Canyon just because it was really quiet. It was like crickets. The only people that would talk to me were Kyle and Amy, who were my main alliance, and Miranda, and sometimes Christina, but it was hard to kind of bond with them. Not like something, I don't have those qualities to just easily connect with people. I have to find ways to bond with people. And one way is to strategize and kind of talk about my passion for Survivor and my boring everyday life with work and like, hey, I'm going to watch Netflix. Unfortunately, Canyon was the vote because he was inactive, but he was very active with me. So I was going back and forth if I should vote with him and vote for Corey, someone who wasn't as active with me. And our conversations would be kind of okay, but they wouldn't really go anywhere. I was shocked to know that Corey, even though wasn't active with me, he was very close with people. He was very social. So I underestimated that. And oh, that was 7 minutes. Okay. I think I can do 1 more minute. But the rest of the game was basically merge. I got swapped basically to Monica 2.0. And that's when I reconnected with Austin and Megan. I knew that I can work with them. And I was swapped with Christina, Miranda, and Amy. I wasn't sure if one of them had turned on me, but like I was willing to work with them. And I was playing both sides because I had one side, Megan and Austin, and another side, the OG Chandler. So I was hoping we wouldn't go to tribal council and we can either target Denara or Jester, because otherwise, if it was 4-4, I would have to show my cards and go to rocks, which I was willing, but at that point I had to take a side. More on that later. Amy was blindsided at the merge. She was one of my allies, and then I quickly had to readjust on my strategy. I know I'm going over right now, so if any questions you guys, I'll ask them. There's a lot of gameplay that I have that I haven't touched upon, and I'm willing to explain it as I have a lot of questions. I'm just gonna stop here. And I did make moves. I was working on the shadows, and I was low key. And I would say that I started off as viewed as a goat, morphed into a rat, and then at the end I turn into a snake slash challenge beast. So I look forward to your questions, and if not, I'll get the rest in my closing speech. OJ, take it away. I know. Sorry.
OJ, you up?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And thanks again, like Jester said and Ed echoed. I just want to thank the host and all of you that are both here and not here. I didn't really know what to expect coming into this game, and I'm going to touch on that. I was hoping that this would be a very laid back kind of game, that I would have fun, that I could play differently than I have been playing. And some of that I did. But what I didn't expect was the crazy strategic play that was there this season. And I think this entire merge from start to finish was crazy strong strategically. And I'm going to touch on some of that more, and I'm going to try to move through it pretty quick too. But going into the merge, I'd played, I'd been pretty under the radar. I think I'd made that a goal, and some of it was out of necessity, and some of it was based on, where I was in terms of, I've had a lot of games recently where I've been a boot based on threat level, and I wanted to try to avoid that. So I tried to start slower. And what I really wanted to do is stay under the radar, stay, at least not stand out as much in terms of the main chat, in terms of some of these other parts that are ways that elevate you up initially. And I also wanted to play more honest. I've never been a big liar necessarily, but I have done more of what I needed to do in terms of the game than I have in this game. And I've really tried to make a habit of doing that. And I tried to do that in some other ways too. Like I tried to show that I was trustworthy in different ways. I told pretty much everybody where my vote was going almost every night. There wasn't a whole lot of secrets unless there was a specific reason for doing that strategically. I marked every single vote that I had. So after the fact, everybody was able to know that where I told them I was going to vote, that I voted. And I didn't just do that like to, hey, I'm going to be this boring, honest, trustworthy person. I did that because I think when I told people where I was voting after that, they knew that's where I was going to vote. And when there were chances where I needed to make more of a move, it helped me to be able to do that. But, moving into this, and I want to touch on some specifics too. So when we get to merge, the first two votes, all that changed. I had to play a lot harder. Really, the first two votes after merge, I think, were some of the strongest. Again, I felt like I had to play extremely social, which I did after the merge started. I felt like I had built connections with the majority of the merge tribe. That even started with Ed. Like I spent an hour on the phone with Ed the day we merged and the following day after. I spent a lot of time again with Megan after we had swapped apart. Elon, Antonio, these relationships that had been there, Jester, Kyle, these relationships that had happened after swaps or that we had swapped away from, I spent a whole lot of time on once we merged. And honestly, almost every one of those people never voted me. I think the only time that it happened was when Ed voted me at Final Four. So because of that and the way it pushed through, Corey, another one that's in that group, but the way that it pushed through in those social relationships, I really think helped move forward. But the other thing that I did, I felt like at those first two merge votes, and really the only true threat to take me out was the second, not the merge boot, but the second one. And I felt like both I read through, I felt pretty strongly that Austin and Amy were close going into the merge. I kind of from the conversation with Ed is sort of where I deduced, that being the case. And I just had bad feelings about that idle play, which is why, ultimately that I ended up pushing away from Austin when it seemed like Austin was an easier vote. Then on the second vote, we had this weird kind of split vote scenario. I ended up compiling the votes that I trusted together. Now, it didn't end up mattering as much because some of those relationships with Ed and Megan, where they may have been able to put those votes together to take me out, didn't end up happening that way. But even if they would have, I'd already kind of saw through, what was going on and was able to keep that from happening at the time. My positioning after that, basically based on how hard I'd played then, I didn't think that I could continue playing the same way that I had been, and I had to kind of keep up that pace. The other thing really is Antonio was playing such a strong game. I mean, it was like I have never really even seen anybody that deep in the merge be so in control of everything that was happening, and probably too in control. I think we can all agree with that, including Antonio. It was just too obvious that he was, when he told people this is where I'm voting, like, he was so open about it and so pushy about who those things were. And it was happening, in a lot of these scenarios. And, I think one of the strongest parts about my game post merge was there were 2 times that I was blindsided on votes. Those were the Elon vote and the Antonio vote. And after that, I felt like I got stronger and positioned myself better after it. So when, the first time when it happens and we have this Elon versus Christina vote that goes down, and Kyle, like Jester talked about a little bit in his speech, left me out of that vote. And I was upset. And, honestly, like I'd be lying if I didn't say that is something that in the past I would have 100% went after Kyle right then. I would have told whatever lies that I had to tell to go after Kyle and to make a play against him. And it probably would have got me voted out sooner. But instead, I knew that Kyle still wanted to work with me. I knew that Jester was still close with Kyle. So I again went back and leveraged that relationship, not quite to the same level that it was, even though it would happen later, I think, with Kyle. But I was able to still go back in and play that up with him and, move forward with them, and then have a situation where they didn't really target me. The other thing, and then in a similar way, and a couple different scenarios there, the one with the Austin vote after the Elon vote, where it was like, I'd been throwing Austin's name out. It's pretty much the only name that I ever, heavily pushed. I'm not saying it was the only name that I wanted ever, but Austin had become such a big name about, like, he keeps escaping these votes. I think, there was a couple people that talked about this, Ed, we can probably put on this same category, but the 9 lives kind of category that definitely happened with Austin. And one of the advantages with that was after that vote, where I was technically on the bottom, of the numbers after that, when I said, look, I'm voting Austin this time, and a lot of people still, didn't trust Austin and didn't want to have a lot of momentum moving forward, I felt like that was a way that was able to get the votes there, and a way for some of those people that had, voted against me, and, the people that I was working with on the vote before were really able to show that they were willing to continue working with me. And I think that continued on throughout. But then with the Antonio vote, and if, there was a time when we had touchy subjects, and I did not expect to get some of the touchy subjects answers that I did. And in all honesty, if you asked me who was going to win if they made it to travel, I voted Antonio, and I thought it was Antonio at the time. But when that answer came out for me, and I did have an idol, and, there were some advantages for me at that point. But after getting voted most likely to win, and almost everybody held the cards up, and I don't know if some of that was, gameplay or strategy or whatever it was. But after that happened, I only received the 1 vote. It was Ed's at Final Four, and I think Ed even struggled with that vote. So what I did after that, it's something that it's not a position that I've been in. I didn't win any immunities. I did have the idol that I stretched out. I feel like I took an idol that was good until Final 5 that could help save you on 1 vote if people were targeting you. And I felt like I stretched it out from 8 to 5. And I made it last for all those votes. And every night it was a situation where, could I play it on myself? Could I play it on an ally? And I think those things helped push me forward to that spot, and where I was at ultimately. I do want to touch, let's see, I'm trying to think of my time. I'm pushing on it too. I might have gone over also. The Kyle vote, I'm going to touch on that one. this is in my mind, the vote at 6, I think is going to be talked about a lot in questions, I would guess. I think it should be talked about a lot. I will say just a couple things on that front first. It was never supposed to be Megan that goes, and I'll give Ed credit for that at the same time, but I don't think it was. Kyle made the move to let Ed know at that point, and I knew it immediately. And I went to Jester immediately after, and I told him, Kyle did this. Like, Kyle is the reason that this happens. And if Ed wins again, then it's because of Kyle, and Kyle has to go because of it. So when that happened, and then it happened after, I think that was one of the most pivotal parts in the game, and I really think that I was instrumental in doing that. All that said, I do want to summarize it a little bit. I think I did play a complete game. I think I read out all of the threats against me. I think I didn't play a perfect strategic game. I've played better strategic games, but the strategic gameplay was so high that it was impossible to play perfect. I don't think any of us did. You know, there were no reads. I think Kyle was as close to it on the strategic side, but I felt like me and Kyle were going to strategic battles even when we were working together. You know, so I felt like I was on my game when it came to reading those things through. A lot of you know that from conversations that we had about things that happened after the fact or before, you know, before and then after seeing what happened. I felt like I was able to see what had happened and then adjust accordingly to it to position myself. I think I took out the biggest threats to me. I think our votes early definitely were symbolic of that. And I think the people that were left were the people that were the most friendly to me. Again, I think that if there's any takeaways from this, like especially from this speech and what I ask everybody to stay open-minded in terms of these questions. I love Survivor too much for any of us. And this includes the people that are friends to me. If you're friends to Jester, if you're friends to Ed, listen to us, hear us out. Vote for the person that you think played the best game, period. I really don't care about the rest of it. If that's not me, then don't vote for me. But I believe that I played the best game in all facets of the game. And I'm asking you to vote for me, but ask the questions about it and take us serious and listen to us and hear those parts out. Because at the end of the day, this was a great season. The gameplay was really, really high. And I want the person that everybody on this jury feels like played the best game to win it. And I hope that's me.
All right, guys. So some of the people could not make it, so they have sent in their questions. We're going to skip Amy for now because I'm hoping she'll be able to pop in near the end. So we're going to go straight to Miranda. Miranda's question is: I would like to ask all three players, how well do you think you did with jury management, specifically for the first 4 people that joined the jury? I'm just going to go in order of who's on my screen. So Eddie, you can start.
Yes, okay. Jury management. Well, Amy was taken out and I was blindsided. So I didn't really have to do jury management with her. Like, she's someone that I wanted to work with her long term. And when she was taken out and I was excluded out of the vote, like, I didn't see that coming. You can probably see my reactions. And so I feel like, even though, like OJ said, my game wasn't perfect, but you know, she was someone that I wanted to work with down the line, and she was taken out. And so I had to readjust and find new allies. I had to, like, you know, adjust to any scenario and do what I had to do to survive. Then it was Miranda. Miranda actually was a huge threat. Like, she was talking to me, but at the same time, I knew she had a shared idol. I knew information about her that she told me last, and she thought I was the last one to know, but I already knew these things from Kyle. Kyle told me that Corey and Herf were the winners of the advantage and that she had a shared idol. I also knew that she told me that she had a final 2 with Christina. She told me that there was an alliance of 3, the mom alliance with Miranda, Amy, and herself. And also she told me that what was the other thing? That Christina had voted for me. So I already knew that. And that Corey had voted for me. So she kind of confirmed, like, she's like, yeah, I knew about that. So unfortunately, I knew where the tide was going. I had just lost Amy, and I knew that the people who were left out of the vote, including herself, were voting for Antonio. She voted for Antonio. So if you're going against Antonio, Antonio is going to make sure that you go home. She was a huge threat. And also, I knew that I needed to preserve myself. So I ended up voting for her to show some loyalty and worry about myself, get myself further through the votes. Then there was the Elan vote. The Elan vote is probably my biggest move in this season, probably because like I had gone to, I believe me and Antonio actually had a conversation. And I think Austin's name was out there because he was the second OJ vote. And that night, Miranda was one of them. And then Austin was the second one. So Austin was my ride or die. So I wanted to ensure that I could protect him as much as I could. And that was kind of like diminishing my bond with him by saying that I had voted him off twice, but I would have a hard time to vote him out just because in the Denara vote, he did tell me that my name was out there. So that I was using that story to create people to like, hey, Ed doesn't want to do this because he kind of owes Austin and it could lose a friendship. So what I did was me and Antonio had this conversation that it should be Christina, and I was kind of like offering her name, and Antonio was down for that. Antonio wanted to work with me. Me and Antonio had a conversation at merch. So I kind of pushed for her because I knew she was one of the names that had written my name down with Corey. And I also wasn't afraid to throw a name who had come after me. I wasn't throwing like OJ's name or other names because I could get back to people and put a target on my back. Antonio was down. And then the other side wanted to make a move against Antonio with the Elan vote. There was already 4 votes for Christina, and I would be the 5th. They didn't want to tell Corey because Corey and Christina were a pair. So they left them out of the vote, and they thought it was Austin. So I decided to jump ship, and I decided to flip. And it was my vote that sent out Elan. It was even between Christina or Elan, and that's why OJ and Antonio were pissed at me, especially OJ, because I had lied to him. I told him like, yeah, it's Christina, and he's like, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I decided to do what was best for my game long term. Elan was someone that wasn't going anywhere, and that she was potentially someone that would be at the final 3 because she was protected by Antonio. And I knew this through Kyle. So I decided to take a shot, and I was already at the bottom, so might as well do it. And it was my deciding vote. It was literally a call. And I looked at Christina. I told her, I am taking a leap of faith right now. Let's do this, but I need to know that I can trust you. And even Corey messaged me while I already voted, like, please don't vote Christina, vote Austin. And what he didn't know is that actually we took out Elan, and he was left out of the vote, told to vote Austin. And yeah, Elan went. So Elan was someone that I wanted to work with, but unfortunately, we didn't have time because I did decide to do that move. I wasn't the one who orchestrated, but I took opportunity, timing of the situation to make something that could benefit me. And then I believe the 4th was Austin, who was blindsided. Well, I was blindsided because after the Elan vote, me and Antonio were talking, and I thought it was me. And Antonio was like, I still want to work with you. It's most probably you or Austin, but I don't want it to be you. So to prove your loyalty, would you vote Megan? And at that point, I had my safety without power. So what I was thinking, like, if Megan went, and it sucked because that's when I had to choose between Austin and Megan. And I decided to save Austin if I could. So I decided to take a risk, and I stayed at tribal council, and I voted for Megan, and I was blindsided because they all voted for Austin. And then I had to repair damage with Megan by talking to her and saying, hey, I voted for you. So that was my jury management, like I was blindsided and left out of the votes, but I had to readjust. And when I had like the opportunity, I was willing to make a move, even though I knew that it could burn my game and lose the little trust that I had built with OJ and Antonio. Sorry for going over, but I feel like I didn't have this opportunity to talk about this, and this was a pretty pivotal vote. And I was the sole vote to send Alon home that night. It was between Christina and Alon, and I chose to do that. So, yeah.
Okay, Chester.
The question is jury management and the first four. I'm gonna touch up on that because I will talk to them other later. I talked to Amy, like I gotta know Amy before this game, and we have some good talks. I'm really thinking that me and Amy are real friends, real friends in this game. Because after, like, after she played Broski, she is like the one that I always talk. And I'm pretty shocked that she's in this cast. But on the merge boot, I gotta I gotta give her off. Like I gotta get out of her. Even though our talk is good, even though she's been lying to me, like, oh, you're my number one, I've done the same thing. I know that if she makes go far to the end, she could win the game. She is that great of a player. On the Miranda vote, I would say Miranda and me would not get along in terms of talking socially and talking strategically. She didn't give me nothing. I always reach out to her, but she just gave me nothing. And that just gave me the fact, it's easy for me to let her go because she's not willing to work with me. She's not gonna work with me in the farthest part of the game. Maybe I could be wrong, but that's how I see, because I don't get nothing from her. From the Elan bout, I was blindsided because I feel close with Ellen because she's close with OJ and Antonio. That's just pretty much it. We did some talk about games, but really not games. On her vote, I did not see her coming, and she's not even giving me a name. She just gave me Austin. I think she wants to let out the vote, and that just gave me opening to work with the other side, which is Kyle. And from the Austin vote is the one that they think that I did play the wrong still about. I did not play the I did not it's not wrong to play the still vote. We're bottom at that point. We're 4 numbers. So like even the other side's voted for us in that time, I'm gonna make sure myself that I go further in the game, especially on that night. Austin was targeting me super hard. And I got used to still the vote. And even though it did work, it did not, or the other side did not vote for him, we still have the numbers because it's gonna be 5-4. And that's just pretty much, I voted for Austin because it's just both respects that we target each other and we know our games that we're not working together. But in terms of the jury management, I did what I could to make sure that I respect these people and respect their gameplay, because they all have their gameplay that should be respected and should deserve to respect. That's my thing.
Okay, OJ.
Well, this question's an interesting one, and it's a tough one because, like, for me, these first two, Amy and Miranda, I was never on a tribe with. So the first interactions that I had with them were this Thursday to Monday time period. The only interactions that I've ever had with them were from that Thursday to Monday time period. And I think both are two different examples. Like, I think on the Amy, I feel okay about my jury management overall. I mean, I don't think I made a lot of people mad, even though they may not have been happy with, my engagement with them or whatever it might be. But Amy, I had a lot of really good talks with. I wouldn't, in all honesty, I did not want Amy to go that quick. In my mind, I thought Amy was somebody who, like, I thought Amy was a good shield for a lot of people. So, like, for me, because I've had some of these threat boots, it's nice to have people that, at some point when you need a vote, that you can say, hey, this person needs to be the vote tonight because look at how much they're controlling this side or whatever it is. But that all shifted when there wasn't that many choices left. And Miranda was complicated at that point because of, this whole shared idol deal with Corey and that situation. So it really didn't leave a lot of options. And I thought that Amy would be a true blindside, which was my ultimate goal because of the idol situation. So I had good talks with Amy. I think she's super cool. I think she's a great player. She kind of reminded me when I was talking to her, I'm like, she kind of uses some of my tricks on me to try to pull information out. So like I recognized that early. I probably wouldn't. The only reason that I even lied to her about the vote was because I knew that she lied to me. I actually asked her this question. She may or may not remember this, but I asked her what names are out there. And she said, I've only heard Ed, I think it was Ed, and I don't know, there were a couple names that she mentioned, but she didn't mention the one that I knew that she was planning to vote. And so I said, are you sure those are the only names? And she said, yes. And I said, well, if that's the case, then we're good tonight, which I knew at that time that I was planning to write her, but I also knew that, I'd set it up that way. Miranda's a more complicated example for me. I had a really good talk with Miranda on Friday. We had a ton in common. I really expected to bond extremely well with Miranda. We both have two young girls. We both, I think play kind of, from what I've heard, I think some of the social way that we go about the game is kind of similar from other people. But basically from Friday all the way until Monday, I heard nothing from Miranda. So do I think my jury management was great with Miranda? No. But did I really have a choice either? It's kind of where I was at. Like I knew Miranda was not going to be working with me at that point. So it was like, what choice do I have but to target her? Elon, I don't want to go down, this topic probably comes up later. I would have probably never written her name. It would have taken like a whole lot for me to be in a situation where I would have ever wrote her. I felt so, it kind of all happened quick, even when we were on our original tribe and the swap tribe. We worked together the whole time, but I felt like something had clicked, a little bit later in the merge or early in the merge. And I felt like I felt like that was my fault that night because it was when I was on the work trip. I won't say I was inactive. I was still messaging, but I was, I couldn't really get on the calls as much. And I honestly believe that if I was around, that Antonio and Kyle both wouldn't have had to have been on that collision course that they were on. And it's part of the reason that I didn't hold it against Kyle later on and kind of was able to get past it until then a few other things happened that made it a little bit different. But not great there. And then Austin, if anything, me and Austin were on a collision course. I felt like he was targeting me directly and indirectly from the start. It's Antonio the first time. It's me the second vote. Like this, there was never going to be a time where I trusted Austin, period. So if that's bad jury management, like, yes, I wanted Austin out. And I think that, really on, like Jester talks about, I don't think Jester planning to steal a vote was wrong on that vote either, because it was either Austin or it was one of us. Like that was the only two options. So for him to ensure that we had the numbers is not wrong, and it allowed him to move forward in the right spot too. But it was also one of those things where for me and getting to this point, I think Austin going that night was the only choice. So maybe the jury management wasn't great on it. I don't really remember what me and Austin's late conversations were like, but from Amy, Miranda, Austin, y'all know there were tons of pregame connections across this whole cast. And I just had this feeling about a lot of those. And there are a lot of those are grouped together. I'm not saying they were always going to work together. I'm not saying they were or they weren't. But a lot of people had pregame connections, and a lot of people had votes that went that way on them. Some people voted against them, some people voted with them. I mean, Survivor happened in between. But I would just say that, like, it was easy for me to group them together somewhat in my mind, and maybe that was, maybe that's a little bit of a mistake in terms of jury management. But I try to treat them all with respect. I tried to all be truthful to all of them in the situations that I could. So I hope not too bad, but maybe I would say slightly below average with those first four votes.
All right. Let's see, I believe next up is Alon.
Hey guys. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to all three of y'all to getting to the top three. Very well done. So you kind of already answered some of my questions already, but obviously I kind of was voted out sort of early on in the game. So I actually had one for actually all of y'all. And if you could just kind of elaborate a little more on kind of how you got to be in the bottom, not the bottom, in the top three, and why I'm here, sitting here choosing you. So if you could just elaborate a little bit more and kind of fill in some blanks for me, that would be great. And say whatever you need to say, no lying, no BS. I'm all ears.
Any specific order?
No, you can go first if you want, Ed.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I will say that voting you out was something that I had to do. It wasn't something that I orchestrated or even like planned. It was something that relates to my gameplay. I wanted to play this social under the radar game, but unfortunately I was at the bottom and a backup of the vote, like at OG Chandler, had received 2 votes of the 2 out of the 3 tribal councils that I went to. And I was always the backup. Like if someone plays an idol, Ed is gonna go. So even though I had these alliances, I was still getting votes. So at the merge, I needed to make sure that I strengthened those bonds. And Antonio was someone that came to me straight away and he's like, girl, I want to play with you. We went to Game On Final 3 and I had never written his name down. He told me that his OG alliance was OJ, and I told him that I was close with Kyle and Amy. Unfortunately, Amy targeted Antonio, and Antonio had to take care of business. If something comes after you, you got to do it. And I understood, but I lost an ally. So I wanted to build trust with Antonio and OJ because I know Kyle wanted to work with OJ, and I, by extension, was working with Kyle. I also was working with Austin, Megan, Amy, Miranda, and to some extent, Christina on the other side. So I kind of was working a social game where I knew that I could potentially be the target at merge because out of everybody, I was the one with the most previous votes pre-merge. So if people got talking like, why don't we just vote out Ed? All this craziness, like let's just go for a simple vote. And I told Antonio that I felt nervous, and Antonio told me that he didn't want to be a merge boot. So when Amy said that there was a plan to potentially do Jester because people were targeting Austin, Austin was going to play his idol, and he thought all the votes were going on him so that Jester would go home, but that wasn't the case. Amy was taken out, so I had to readjust. I had to work with people that had written my name down with Christina. I jumped on the opportunity with your vote out to potentially further my position in this game. I knew I was burning trust with OJ and Antonio, but at the same time, I knew that I would be at the bottom regardless. So I took opportunity to make a big move. And it was my vote that decided between you or Christina going home that night. At first, it was Christina because she had written my name down and I wanted to further myself, not just one vote, but kind of like build trust with people. I decided to turn on OJ and Antonio basically and vote you out. I did try to get to know you, and I feel like we would have worked together well just because I feel like you're very open and you are not afraid to. We were having conversations about you trying to get supplies, and that was like just flowing very easily. And I feel like, unfortunately, I had to take out a threat to my game, and you were a threat to my game. After that, I flipped and I bounced, and I was always at the bottom. I never had an alliance fully. I was working with Kyle, and it felt like I was working with single people who would not work together that I wanted to work together. So I had to readjust, and it came down to a time where like I lost Austin. I voted for Megan, so I had to get that trust back. And I told her I would honor that promise to give her my advantage if I won immunity because I had just written her name down and I lost one of my closest allies with Austin. At final 7, I won immunity and I decided to make a move. I didn't orchestrate that move, but I also don't feel Jester actually orchestrated that move. I feel like Kyle was the one who was driving that bus. Jester pretty much just flipped. And Jester also, I do believe he had an intention of taking on Antonio, but I feel like it was a emotional decision rather than logical, because I feel like if it doesn't work out, he kind of screws his gameplay. He did tell me that one of the reasons that he felt that way was because Antonio had played the idol on Corey and OJ, and he realized that he wasn't in the majority and he was never final 3. I think it was kind of a bit of a blunder to just act emotionally and not logically. I think it was kind of a big move for him, but I don't think he gets all the credit. I think Kyle is actually who gets the credit, because in our conversations, he's the one who's like, we need to get the numbers, and he's actually pushing the numbers. I knew that a potential, I was going to be the target next. So I decided to go for Antonio, even though I knew that I was lying to Antonio's face. And it cost me a friendship because he unfriended me on Facebook. So after that, at 6, I lost immunity and it seemed like I was going to go home, but apparently there was a plan to take me out, and Kyle told me about the plan, and I went full self-preservation and I voted, unfortunately, Megan. I decided to take out an ally to further my game and save myself. Am I proud of it? No, because of what I've heard. Like, I've heard Megan basically, but I needed to do it to get to myself to 5 and 4 by winning those last 2 individual immunities where it really counted. Where even Kyle told me that if I had lost immunity, he would vote me out. So really, I didn't have anyone to play with me, and I had to fight. I don't know if you've seen, but I had to fight through every challenge trying to win just so I can make it to the end, because that's all I had to left to do. You know, I never really fully had an alliance. Yes, I was open to make big moves because my door was never really close to Christina or Corey or OJ, and I had to basically take opportunity of timing. And when someone, I knew that it wasn't gonna happen, the majority alliance wasn't gonna like crack. I needed to take opportunity when there was those opportunities to strike, and I wouldn't be here without Kyle, Megan, Austin, you know, and even Antonio and OJ. But I did feel like I played my game. It was an individual game. It was like everybody versus Ed towards the end. And I'm very proud of myself. And in touchy subjects, I got least deserves to be here. And I went on to win that challenge. So I went from someone that people thought I didn't deserve my spot to be here to win that challenge and to win the most individual immunities. And yes, I had luck, I had social bonds, but I feel like when it really came down to it, it was my social, strategic, and challenge, you know, play that really got me here to the end. I played every single avenue that was allowed to me, and I played the hand that was dealt to me. And yes, I've burned people, I've betrayed allies, but I never gave up. And there was so many times where like no one was rooting me on except for myself. And I had to believe in myself to get myself here. So I know I went over it, just I feel like I want to explain, if I don't get a chance, at least I'm telling you how I got here. So thank you for your question, and I hope that I answered your question.
You did. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, yeah, Jester.
Okay, I'm gonna start with my biggest move. I'm gonna take the full credit of that Antonio spot. This is what I tell to Kyle. Hey Kyle, if you want to take shot to one of us, let's take out Antonio. And I did tell to Kyle, Ed, Megan would never trust me. So I need you to tell them that we're voting for Kyle. And Kyle did that part, and that helps me to move forward with them in the game. That's why that's the biggest move that I did from the Antonio spot. And of course, I did lie to like Corey, OJ, because I don't want them to feel like Antonio is the belt. Even though I had a feeling OJ could play the idol Antonio, I make sure that I push Corey in the roof that Corey could go home, but it was Antonio on that night. And of course, with the voting part, I have smack in the middle right there. So I get the decision. In every single tribal, I said this on my opening, in every single tribal, they need my vote. They need my vote to further in the game. With the Kyle vote, it was 2 on Corey, 2 on Kyle. I'm the one who's deciding the vote. And Kyle go home at the time, because at that time, I want the biggest challenge beast. Could beat Ed, but of course, Ed is still here. But also with Antonio vote, I had a close relationship with Corey, and I feel like Corey understand the fact that I turned away the target from him. That's why Corey wants to work with me down the line. And I said on also in my opening, in the final 5, I have the perfect setup that everyone in that player wants me in the final 3, because I make those close relationship. Even though I flip on them, they still trusted me back, because I know in this game they need me to further their game down the line. And that's what I make into the final 3. Yes, I was in the bottom the whole time. Yes, my name was out there the whole time since day 1. Yes, that I survived all those tribal. I survived every name that has been written out. I always said, as long I'm not the majority vote, I'm fine. I can further myself in the game. And that's what I did. Make sure that I'm planning to make to the end, and I'm always in the end. With the close relationships I have, the social, and of course the strategic part, that crazy happens, because if I don't have that strategic, I'm not even there. I'm not even in jury, because since I did that part, I did what I did to do to make to the end, I did it. And that's how, even though maybe I burned a lot of people, even Antonio, I think he blocked me, but I did what I did to further my relationships with the people that I'm close with. And that's how I make to the end.
Thank you.
Well, one of the parts that you said first is, why are you there, versus here? I think that there were I've used this analogy before, but you're kind of like Doctor Strange moments of like all the possibilities that could have happened in this game. There are tons of them where you're sitting here. I mean, there really are. I don't think one of the most unfortunate parts about you getting voted out is because I don't think it had anything to do with people not wanting to work with you, or because of anything that you did wrong, or bad relationships or whatever. Like, I think that, and I know this because me and Kyle talked about this a lot, and I do think that Kyle was a big part of this vote, but that vote was purely because we were being viewed as a 3 of me, you, and Antonio, and it was a shot to try to weaken me and Antonio. And the same thing with the Antonio vote, which are the 2 biggest votes that they both talk about. Like, Jester's biggest vote is, he talks about Antonio. Ed mentioned your name in terms of that part. Both of those moves were to try to weaken me, and I'm still here, So it's like one of those things of where, when it comes down to it, like, these moves set them up maybe to get here. But the reason that it was a strong move was because of what they perceived it to do to my game and my chances of getting here. And I think that I was able to adapt really well in those situations. And in terms of why I'm here, every single vote, I could tell you tangibly, like, things that I did to push socially, strategically, reasons that the vote was not me, and in almost every situation, reasons that the vote was who ended up going home at that time. I think in every scenario that I can do that. And like, this game started, and just to circle back on that too, I always go, like, normally I go 150% right out of the gate, and I'm like, there's not like 5 minutes that I don't have a response back to certain messages. That I wasn't playing that way initially, and I kind of did that a lot on purpose. But what ended up happening was, when we hit merge, I think everybody had been going so slow that I think I really was able to establish relationships with people from the other side of the travel that I hadn't had that much time with going in, that were really able to where even when votes weren't going my way, they weren't necessarily willing to vote me, which is like, that's the Ed scenario. I mean, that's the second vote of the merge, where me and Ed I'd never talked to Ed before, this game started, in the same way that we had never, talked or had any relationship going in. But based on our conversations over that weekend, Ed, even though the rest of his allies were voting me on that night, didn't vote me on Monday night whenever Miranda went home. So, and those examples I think helped me carry forward too. But once we got to 10, before you were voted out, especially, it was really the 10 people that were the most likely to work with me that were left. And then when Austin was gone, it was all of the people that wanted to work with me pretty much that were left. So I do think that, on each of those votes, I was able to position myself well and ultimately, put myself in a position where I never really was targeted, even though I was getting things like, most likely to win at touchy subjects and all those parts. So I think I probably talked too long on it, but that's kind of my summary of why that is. But I definitely don't think it was anything about your game that the reason that you're not here. And I really wish you were. But all those things said, I think that's where we got the way that we got to this point.
I appreciate that. And I wish all three of you good luck.
Okay, next up we have Austin's questions. He has 2 questions for each of you. So the first question is, which juror deserves to be in the final 3, and which finalists would you replace them with? Whoever wants to start.
I'll start. What is the question again? Which in the jurors deserve the final 3, and who will replace on the final 3?
Yeah, which juror deserves to be in the final 3, and which finalists would you replace them with?
I'm gonna go first with, I think the one who deserves to be here in final 3 is Kyle. I think he played the strategic and socially part of the game. He played, I think, one of the best in this game. He played not socially, but super strategically, like everyone wants to work with him. And even though he kept lying, he's still like under the shadow. Oh, I still trust him, even though he's lying to front of me. That's how good of the gameplay is. I would replace him. I'm sorry, Ed. I think I would replace him with the head. Not just because Ed is not a great of a player, but I think Ed relies on the immunity part of the game. That's it. I mean, even though he knows that he's the target, he knows he's the one to go home, but doesn't have immunity. I don't think Ed would make to the final 3. And that's why I would replace Kyle to Ed.
Okay, if any of you want to volunteer, or
Yeah, I don't mind taking it next. We can switch up this order a little bit. I would have picked Kyle. I will say that I'm going to switch it up because you did. But I will just touch on that. I do think that Kyle played the best, probably the best game overall. And the reason that I think that he, that's the reason that it was such an easy decision for me, honestly, at 5 when he had lied to me, a couple of times before. But that said, I'm going to pick one that's a little bit different on this front. And I think that, you can make that case for Antonio and you can make that case for Kyle, but I think both of them played a little bit too strong, which is probably why that they're in this spot. But I'm going to say one that's a little bit different and one that it seemed like everybody wanted to work with all the time, and that was Megan. Megan, I think, is an interesting one to this spot. But Megan, like, without basically, giving a lot strategically on a lot of these issues, was able to really have pretty much everybody in the game wanting to work with her and not wanting to vote her. And I know that was me even up until she went a lot of the time, and we kind of had to target her. And I'm like begging her, like, Megan, please give me something so we don't have to do this. But since you already knocked, I'll replace you, Jester. I'll replace Jester with Megan for this, but I would also echo some of those same parts, but just because of the different styles. And it's hard to play much different from what Megan did to Jester. So there's such differing styles too. So I'm going to replace Jester with Megan for mine.
Okay, so who I think I would see here at the final three from the jury is definitely Kyle. I feel like Kyle played the best game. Who's in the jury? Um, I can only add to what they just said. He was very strategic, was very social. And I think also one of the things that differentiates him is probably like he was able to know and calculate like the risk of making a move versus what's not a good move or what's best for him and his allies. And I think that he encompasses that. And I feel like OJ and Jester didn't really do that. I think they relied on other stuff. OJ relied on basically holding onto an idol and saying that he would play it on an ally, but when it came down to it, he wouldn't do it. When he knew that Antonio was going, and then Jester saying that he claims that his biggest move was the Antonio vote out when he literally said that he went to Kyle. Had it not been for my vote, it goes to a tie. So I also feel like I played a great game. So I would say that I would have a hard time replacing either OJ or Jester just because I can't see both qualities to replace either one of them. But I would say the person that I feel like didn't live up to their potential and is kind of like, I guess, masking moves that really didn't really happen and taking credit for them is Bobby Jester. Yes, you can make a move, but that doesn't mean that you were driving or was the one who was orchestrating. You were part of the vote out and you were an extra vote, the got set player, but you weren't the person who orchestrated and got the numbers and the plan going. And same thing with OJ. I feel like a lot of the questions he's saying like he basically would know what was going on, yet I was able to blindside him twice with the Antonio vote out and the Elon vote. I feel like I outwitted him. And I feel like as much as he wants to say that he had control over this game, there was times that he wasn't on top of his game. And I definitely feel like, I would make a case for either both, but I would go with Jester.
Okay, second question, try to keep this one short. Do you think your gameplay or strategy was boring? If not, why not? Let's see, we'll start with OJ. 1 second.
Yeah, at certain points, I would say that it was a little more boring than I wanted to play. But I do think that it was necessary, so for me, it was like, definitely I was caging a lot of what I really wanted to do in terms of moves to try to be more, I don't want to say strategic because I don't think strategic is the right word, but to be more cautious about what I was doing in terms of what kind of position it would leave me in after. Like I definitely was trying to think more votes ahead than just, whatever was happening emotionally at the moment. But at the same time, like I think that there were plenty of times where some of the spiciest moments of the season, I definitely think I was involved in too. Whether it be the Kyle, the Final Five night was definitely pretty spicy, and I think a lot of the moments after the Elon vote, the Antonio vote, all those I think were pretty exciting too. So I don't think it was, I wouldn't say boring, but I think it was slower. It was more methodical than I typically play, is what I think I would say about my game overall. but I do think it was still flashy at the right times, to get me here, especially to get me here without winning any immunities. I mean, I had really nothing else to rely on. So I do think from that standpoint that it was more boring than maybe I would typically play, but I don't think I would consider it boring, especially if you knew what was going on. I think a lot of these people that were in the game late, I think could vouch for that part too. But that'd be my answer to that one.
Ed, I guess we'll do you next.
I don't think my game was boring. I mean, there was a lot of times where I could have gone home and I managed to survive through making bonds with people. Kyle could have, from what I heard, there was a plan for him to vote me out final six from what OJ said. I don't know if that's true, but I was willing to tell him and show my loyalty to Kyle. And I think one of the things that Pavi is why he's sitting there is probably because he chose to keep me and let me in on that final six vote. And unfortunately, it got him vote him out like at final five because I won immunity and he was the biggest target. I feel bad for him because I did tell him like if I was going that night, I wanted him to make it to the end and win. And I feel like him sticking out his neck for me is pretty much his undoing. And that was my game. My game was like working with people who I knew were potentially in power and create those bonds and make sure that I wasn't the target. And when I was the backup target, I made sure that I could make any deal or anything that could potentially get me further one vote because I knew that if you can stay one more day, anything can change. And it did change for me. A lot changed. No one ever saw me winning 4 individual immunities, the most in the season. I had to fight. Like I know people were comfortable. Like I feel like Jester did like participate in making moves, but he had to lie a lot and tell lies that he didn't really had to. And I feel like that was kind of like crossing the line. So if you're gonna make a big move, there's ways to go about it without lying through your teeth and making lies that you don't have to. And with OJ, I feel like his gameplay was like not really making any moves. It was just like, as long as I make it to the end, this and that. But he wasn't really willing to make moves like take out Antonio or even play the idol. Like he could have played it for Antonio. He knew Antonio was going out, and that's what he told me, that he knew that it would be Antonio, and he chose to keep that idol and not play it when Antonio had played it previously for Corey and OJ. So you have to take risks in these games, and I did take some risks. It didn't always pay off for me, but I was willing to make those moves and to get me myself further to this game. And when there was obstacles, I persevered. My story for this game has been about perseverance. It hasn't been a perfect one by any means, but if I had to fight through every tribal council to make sure that my name is not out there, and when it is, that it's not me going home. Through my social, outwit, outplay, outlast, strategic gameplay. I had to do every single one of those, not huge amounts, but little, I guess, little about each and every one of them. And I feel like I've had to earn my spot, like I fought through everything. And just because I earned 4 individual immunities and it hadn't been for that doesn't mean that it makes me less deserving. It just makes me feel like I outplayed the 2 people sitting next to me because they didn't think I was that big of a threat and they could get rid of me at any moment. And look what happened. I'm still here and I am still fighting even in this tribal council. When the odds are not in my favor, I still will fight until the end. And that's been my case. And it hasn't been a boring game because there were so many times where I was at the bottom and it could have been my last night in the game. But look at me now. Final 3. And that's what I gotta say. It wasn't boring. It was exciting and crazy over the top and a lot of stuff, a bit extra. So yeah.
I think our game is not boring at all. I had fun with my game. Like I had fun lying. Of course, this is the game of lie and deceit. And I think I played the villain role out of these 2. I played the most villainous role and it's fun. It's really fun. Yes, I did lie, but I think I did lie in the right manner. There's a lot of advantage floating around in the game. I got to like to make sure that they're not using that idol and slap that thing to the right person. And I think one of the best things I do is like, even though it's a lie, they still trust me. And the people that I work with still trust me at this point to even want to work with me. In this game, there's a lot of like, oh, we know this, we got this vote. But for me, it's really just how you manage the whole entire game and how you manage to survive. And I was been telling the whole time my name is around there, but making here to the final three, it's accomplishment, because once your name is out there since day one and you survive, that's an accomplishment. And I think my game was not boring. I think I did a lot of fun, and it's spicy and it's flashy. And that's what I did in this game.
I know we don't have a person asking the question here, Matt, but can I respond back to that a little bit too?
Yeah, just keep it brief.
Well, I will keep it brief here, but look, the talk about the lack of me making moves and where those are, the only two moves that I've heard from either one of y'all are moves that Kyle made. I mean, if Kyle's going to be on here at some point and we're going to ask about Antonio and Alon and who made those moves, this is what I would say. Immunity wins by themselves are not bad. It is obviously like every one of us wanted to win all those immunities that you wanted. I'm not saying you shouldn't have won them. I'm not saying that they don't mean something. But when it comes to pushing this game forward and making votes happen, you can't just rely on the immunity wins and then going with whatever direction it is. And you can't wait until after you win the immunity and then the plans start funneling to you. And I felt like that's what you did in this game. And for me, that was never what I did on a single vote. And I can explain that on each one. And I think when it comes down to it, at 5, at 6, at all of these other places, like, my name is attached to all of them. I can put my stamp on the way that all of those things went. But, at the same time, like, I understand, Kyle did outwit me twice, like, that's the truth. I caught it after pretty quick, and I was able to respond to it. But I feel like me and Kyle battled a lot strategically in this game. And to me, that was the most fun that I had. And that's why I think it wasn't boring, even though I may have been more methodical with it. But going back and forth with Kyle, I think was the biggest part of from touchy subjects on. And I think because I'm here and he's not, that ultimately that means that it's because I came out on top of that battle. But we'll have more time to discuss that too.
Okay. I believe Christina is here now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Christina, you.
So my question to all of you is, if everyone on the jury could receive $1 million except for 2 people, who would those 2 people be?
So 2 people that can't get it.
Yes, 2 people can't get it.
Right. I mean, the 2 people that I would say that I had the least connection with, and that would be the easiest there, would be Miranda and Austin. For me, I don't have anything bad to say about them, but that's fairly easy for me to say, I think, at this point, based on the connections that I had.
I would say Austin and Antonio, just because I feel like they have a profession and what they do in life, I feel like they can, hustle, whereas the rest of the people in the jury have families and they want to take care of their loved ones. And I feel like when you go to Survivor, that's what you want to do. You want to win this game, be the winner, but also take care of your family. And that's not to say that they don't want to take care of their family. I just feel like they are have landed in their on their feet more potentially, rather than I feel like someone like Christina, Amy, even Miranda could do something great with that money for their family and children. I would have to say that, but that doesn't mean that they don't deserve it. At least I would just have to pick two people at the top of my head.
I think I'm gonna go the same with like OJ. I think the least connection I have in here is Miranda because she gave me nothing. Game-wise perspective, game-wise gameplay. Just for my opinions, Miranda and Austin, because I mean Miranda's just didn't work. It just didn't work. And with Austin, we tried to get, but he just keeps lying out to my face, and it didn't work with us trying to work together.
Okay, first of all, Ed, I love your heart. Your answer was perfect. And good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Antonio.
Hi, everyone. How are y'all? Good? Wonderful. Congratulations on getting here. I'm glad that I've had some time to cool off. My exit was not cute. So first I want to say, Ed, I appreciate you saying early in the game, I remember this because I wanted to say it. You come for Antonio, you go home. So I appreciate that. You know, a bitch means business when I play the game. So I have two different questions. My first question is to Ed and Jester. So you guys are referring to mine and Elon's votes for a lot of like your responses that I'm hearing. What else were you doing during the game? So it sounds like you guys were on top specifically on those votes, but what about the Amy vote or the Christina vote or the Megan vote, or like, so what were you doing during those times in the game where you were not on top?
Can I go first?
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, I did participate in the Elon vote. It was my vote that sent her home, and I did participate in your vote out. I didn't orchestrate it. I didn't claim to take claim of that move because it wasn't my idea. I'm gonna be honest about it. I'm not gonna say like I took out Antonio. I was someone that was instrumental to voting you out, and I seized the opportunity to further my game, take out the biggest threat to who I knew could win this game if he got to the end. You had social bonds with OJ. OJ probably wouldn't have gotten rid of you until like maybe final four, final five. But I know a bitch is strong in challenges, so you probably would have pulled an Ed and like won your way to the end. And you have the biggest story of the whole season. When bitches came after you, you outlasted them. And I feel like I had to fill that role, but also with the Christina vote, I had tried to mend fences with you and OJ. And it seems like every time I was down to do something, there was OJ was right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't like have this plan. I didn't orchestrate the plans, but when people did come to me, I took advantage of that. I wasn't gonna be like, no, I'm too scared. I'm working with OJ. Let me just stay comfortable. I don't want to piss people off. No, Christina told me when she was going, and it would have been either her because I was willing to take out someone that was potentially going to write my name down. But one thing that I never did in this game was close my door to people who wrote my name down. I never voted out Christina. I never voted out Jester, and I never voted out Corey. They all wrote my name down. And every time, whether we worked through an alliance or one vote, I was willing to work with them. And she told me, you're playing a good game, but you need to make a move. So what I decided was to make a move, roll the dice and vote for Corey. If it doesn't work out, okay, so be it. But at least I took a chance. I took a leap of faith. And I told Christina, I won an alliance. I don't just want to be like, they come to the plan, like vote with us, And yeah, maybe it didn't happen like OJ, but that was because no one really wanted to work with me. I was kind of like the one that people would come like, let's make a move. And yeah, you become very popular when you win immunity, but I had to fight through every tribal council to get myself here. And that doesn't mean that I was least deserving or I have less heart. I played a great game, maybe not as flashy as OJ, but I was put in that position. I am not a challenge beast, and I was forced to be a challenge beast. And I'm fighting through my life, even through this final tribal council. This is a challenge now because I feel like people are taking credit or kind of like bashing my gameplay when that was the hand that was I dealt. I was dealt with that hand. And I have so much passion for this game that I was willing to vote out my biggest ally, Megan. When I told her and Kyle, I was like, please vote with me at final 6. Let's go after Jester. If it's a tie, vote me out. I was trying to save myself. Usually I just lay there when I know I'm going and I just go home. I wasn't going to do that. I have made it this far and I was willing to fight till the end. So I told them, just please vote with me. If it goes to a tie and it goes to a revote, Jester is going to be safe and I'll be safe. And then like you and Megan, Kyle and Megan will be up for rocks because Corey has immunity and, OJ is not getting any votes because he has the idol, which he was holding on to all this time. So, but I wasn't getting any answers. So what I decided to do was go to Kyle and be like, would you consider voting out Megan? And that's when he told me like, let's do this. Let's make this plan. You have to do this for it to work. And I was like, yes, let's do it. It was self-preservation. And I voted her out to get myself further. That was the Christina and Megan vote. At final 5, I was willing to return that favor, even though if he wanted me gone, I wasn't going to backstab a friend like Kyle. I was willing to honor that promise to not vote him out and stay loyal to him to the bitter end. And I did that. And I do believe that him saving me cost him his game, but I'm here at the end. Even though he's not, I feel like in a way he does deserve it more than me. And I feel like his biggest mistake was saving me. And unfortunately now I decided to go all out at final 5 and 4 because I knew if I had betrayed Megan and lied to people, I needed to make those moves count. And if I was gonna stay in the game and lose an ally like in Megan and lose the friendship in you potentially, which you did unfriend me, and then lose Kyle, who I thought deserved to win, then I was willing to fight and make it all the way to the end and make it count for something. So I hope that answered your question. And yeah. And I do want to say sorry to you. I don't regret the move. I regret lying to you. I feel like that's when I crossed the line.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ed. Thank you. Jester, same question.
It's really hard if it's getting emotional at this point. But Antonio, please unblock me first. I'm kidding. I love you, Antonio. It's just pure out of respect of your belt. But your question is, what did I do to the others' belt? Let me just count one by one. AB, I was planning it to start the game. I tell you, hey, Amy is ring leader of the tribe. If you guys want to go with her, then I'm down to work with her. I flip on that belt for us to move forward. On the Miranda vote, I stay loyal to our alliance. So you know what? If that's what you wanted, let's go for it. Because Miranda didn't give nothing, so it doesn't give me like, okay, I want other choices. It's just Miranda was the vote at the time. Elan, I was blindsided, so that would never count. I was blindsided and didn't know what I was doing. On the Austin vote, I stay loyal with you guys again by playing the still a vote, even though we have the numbers or everyone's voting for Austin that time, but we know that we are in the bottom of that totem pole of that Lions. On the Corey vote, the first, when you use the aisle, that where I start to like, am I Antonio's sport? I tell OJ this that day when you're still there, OJ, I think I'm Antonio's sport and I'm not willing to risk to go for it. But that's why on the Corey vote, I play both sides. I tell you, you and Corey, I was like, you know what? I just want the information from the other side. But the other side, I tell them, hey, I'm sticking with this. I'm sticking with you guys and I hope you guys protect me. Of course, your vote is one of the biggest vote there because I know everyone is emotional at that point. But that's just how to make myself further in the game. Make sure I'm not fourth. And then on the sixth vote, of course, I want to stay loyal with OJ and Corey. So I go back to them and make them trust me to vote the plan, which is the split vote, which is 2-2-2. But of course, Kyle has another plan to tell to Ed that voting for Megan, which is cost him on the final five. Which is even though at 5 I trusted Kyle, I was in the middle of voting for Corey at that time. But I thought to myself, Corey would not vote for me because me and Corey has this, let's say, decent or automatic connections because we're both Filipinos, so we love. So it would sting me to vote for him at that time, even though he's so loyal to me and he's not voting for me at all. And he did kind of save me on the final six. That's kind of led me to vote for Kyle at that time. And then for the Corey vote, well, it's just respect. Because my real number one here is OJ, and I'm never gonna vote out OJ at this point. And that's just how I voted for Corey, and I did respect for Corey that much. That's what I did before on the your vote and the Elon's vote. Well, Elon's vote was blindsided. I was not really big part of that, and you're the one that's the next biggest vote, which is that took everyone's away. And for the rest of the vote, that's what I did.
Okay. Thank you, Jester. Yeah, I'll be in your inbox in a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lastly, OJ. So I'm hearing new information that you knew I was going. So you knew I just played the idol the previous round for you, and I was like you knew I was gonna ride with you, Corey and Elon to the end of the game. Why?
No, I mean, you knew that I had a gut feeling that it was going to be you, or that it wasn't Corey. Was basically what my feeling was. This is where this guy, the guy that says I was his number one over here, really got me on this one. And I think part of that, I think Kyle deserves some credit on this. Like, there is absolutely zero question in my mind. I could never have pictured a scenario at that point that I make it through 4 votes without you being there and without going on an immunity run. I just don't see that as a possibility. So did I have a feeling that it was going to be you at some points? Yes. But by the time that tribal was happening, I was so unsure about everything that was happening. Like, there was Jester's like swearing out to me that it's Corey. Jester's swearing out to us that it's not, that he's voting with us or whatever it was. So, I mean, yeah, in my mind, did I think it was a possibility that it was going to be you? Yes. But I also thought that they might have been leaving Jester out of the vote, which is what I thought the other possibility might be. And Megan, the one thing that really got me, and we can talk about this later, Megan basically admitted to me that she was voting me, which threw me off so bad on everything. And then when Megan played the fake idol, you can ask Kyle, whoever, like after this happened, I got so spooked that Megan had an idol too. So like this whole scenario that happened, like none of that was like, it is absolutely 0% true that I knew you were the vote because somebody told me, and that I didn't play an idol on you. That is not how it happened. If I knew you were the vote, I would have played an idol on you. If I felt confident enough that it was going to be you, I would have played the idol on you. I mean, none of that's a question in my mind at all. I hope you know that. But that's not how it happened. And, at the end of the day, that vote was a really, really tough one for me. I do think that I came out of it well, but I didn't think I would. At the time, I felt like I'm now relying on Ed to vote Jester, or, like these crazy situations that I didn't think were gonna, would necessarily happen when everybody had basically, I mean, at this point, that 4 had voted together 2 votes in a row because they all voted Corey the night before too. So I felt like I'm done, when that happened. But luckily I think I was able to adapt after. But no, it's just not true that I knew. Like I said, I felt like I had a pretty good read on that scenario, which was I think they're voting somebody other than Corey. But I just didn't know who, and I didn't know who was going to be voting where. And Jester was throwing me off, and Megan was throwing me off. And I mean,
Okay.
I went through my freaking thing for like 30 minutes, like trying to decide what I'm going to do on that travel night anyway. I mean, I was trying to stall so bad to figure it out, and I just never felt confident in it.
Okay, I understand. I will accept that. Well, I am keeping an open mind. Sorry, you can barely see my eyes. I'm real high, y'all. But I am keeping an open mind. Good luck. I think I know who the winner is based off of what you guys have already said, but I'm interested. Shout out to Animation March Tribe.
All right. I believe Amy is here now, so we're gonna go and let her ask a question.
Okay, first I want to say congratulations to all three of you. I absolutely adore all of you guys. Jester, we played together. I love you to death. Ed, I was so happy to play with you. You're super sweet, and I'm so glad that we played together this time. Love getting to know you more. OJ, honestly, the conversations we had were probably the deepest and most connected I've ever been with somebody based on my job, and I've never had that before. So I appreciate that. My question to all of you guys is going to be the same question. Do you think you played as a hero or a villain? And why do you think that? I want to get your own perceptions on your own game. And if you played as a villain in your eyes, I want to know, who did you backstab the most, or who was the one that either the most or the hardest backstab, whatever it was. If you played as a hero in your eyes, who were you the closest ally to? Who were you the most loyal to?
I can go first. So in touchy subjects, I got voted hero of the season. And I think at that point of view, like, people, their perception was that someone that was just nice and wasn't willing to, really like get his hands dirty. And hero is always nice. We all want to be a hero, right? But unfortunately in this game, there's lying involved. And I feel like, as much as I would love to be a hero at heart, I feel like I had to play the game, and unfortunately, I became a villain. And that's because I voted out Antonio. I lied to him that whole, basically, while I'm winning immunity, and he said to me that he didn't want to go home. And I knew that at that point, I was either going to go with Antonio and not make a move and just like not make waves, or take an opportunity to be someone that can take out a big threat, someone who could possibly win this game if we stay longer. So I lied to him, and it cost us our friendship. I've never been unfriended by someone over a game, and it was a tough pill to swallow. And I told like people, like, I just lost a friend. And losing friendships in these games, it's not worth it to me. This is not $1 million. We're not playing for $1 million. It's for fun, to make friendships and to get to know people, and to share our passion for Survivor. And the other vote out was Megan. I had to turn on her, and one of the things that she told me was like, mine is the one with the white letters. And at that point, I knew what the plan that Kyle told me to save myself. So I had to put trust in that. And I had an option of telling her, hey, I'm voting for you. And I didn't do that. I just responded, mine is the one with the heart. And she was blindsided, and she was taken out. So essentially, I betrayed an ally to get myself further in this game because it was my last resource. And I feel like I hurt her feelings, and that was the second time I betrayed her. Other than that, I tried to play as an honest game. I guess that's why I got hero. But in this game, I don't think for heroes or villains, I think the line is pretty blurred because if you play the game, you can't always be a hero and you can't always be a villain. You have to go on both sides. And I think I was someone that wanted to start as a hero or be remembered as a hero, but wasn't afraid to make moves. And unfortunately, I ended up being a villain in the eyes of some people. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I'll go next. Looks like OJ is freezing right now. But I'll go, of course. What am I wearing right now? Of course, I play the villain role. I play the villain because I think it's really fun to lie. Not gonna lie. But for your questions, who I did lie the most or backstab the most, I can say 3 people really. The first one is I'm gonna say I think everyone's shocked. I think I've lied a lot of times with Corey, and I feel bad for it. I told you I have this decent connection. I have this automatic connection with Corey, and he's so loyal to me. He's trusted me so much that I can even lie to him at that point. And I hating myself because like this dude, I see his dude. I even circle his photo on the cast photo. That's my twin. That's my twin right there because we pretty much we look alike in that cast photo. And I was like, I see my brother from him. And finding out that he's part of the LGBT community, I was like dying to know him. But in this game, I got to lie. Second, I lied the most. It was from the Antonio one. I think I lied so much about that, but it really it stings me like, why the fuck you doing this, Chester? Why you're so evil right now? But it's because I had to lie because when OJ's idol could play on him, then my plan was fucked up and it's not gonna work. So I got to lie. And special mention, I lied to a lot with OJ, even though he's my good friend, but I'm not gonna touch on him because I think he knows already what's the reason I lied about him. And I think the most lie, and I think a backstab that I did is from you, Amy. Before this game, we talk a lot. I even invited you to Blood versus Water game. I want to be partner with you. And knowing you, like, okay, she's an aggressive player. I need that. I need honesty at least. And the merge comes. I tell a lot. I plant seeds. Hey, she's the ringleader of this tribe. I'm the bottom of this tribe, the Swap Monica tribe. We gotta get her out. We gotta get her out. That's why I think I backstab you the most. Because like even though I love you in personal life, but game-wise, we cannot work together, Amy. We just can't work. It's just hard to work with you, Amy, because like you have these people turning to you, like lean on you with a lot of information. I've been lean on you in this information when we play together and in this game on a Swap Monica. I lean on you, but knowing how good of a player you are, I gotta backstab you. I gotta lie at some point that you're the one that's been running the tribe. Maybe even though it's not, but I gotta take you out at that point. That's pretty much that's how I play the villain, and that's the most 3 people I lie, or 4 people I lie, or everyone I lie in this game. Doesn't matter, but that's the most I lie in this at that point.
Oh,
All right.
I hope,
Okay.
can you hear me now? Jesse
We
said I
can
was
hear.
frozen.
Yeah, we
earlier.
can hear you, but you're freezing.
I don't know what's happening now, but I'll start with this part because I treat everything as game moves, villain, hero, whatever it is. Is it not coming through? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. All right. I try to make personal relationships with people in these games, period. And, whether they blindside me, vote me out, whatever those things are, it's going to make very little impact on whether or not, I consider them a friend moving forward or how those things happen. But I definitely feel like I played more of the hero side of this game. And I think I was forced into it almost because of what, I felt like I had to be loyal, at the spot that we were in. Loyal to people like Jester, loyal to people like Antonio, loyal to somebody like Kyle. And I'm going to use one example because probably the best example of who I did that the most with, which I guess what was my second part on the hero part, who I was the most loyal to, or?
Yeah, if you're a hero, who are you the most loyal to?
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I just want to make sure. But I think I'm going to say Corey, because Corey to me was somebody that, like, I was almost forced into, Corey and I were literally forced into an alliance. It was like, Antonio was like, look, I'm working with both of y'all and y'all are working with each other, and end the story. And that was real kind of hard for me to accept. Like, that's not the way that I would normally play. It's certainly not the way I would typically pick allies or anything like that. And we weren't really that close for most of even the merge. But after the Antonio vote, I think that really in that situation, it would have been real easy for me to go against Corey. But I'd kind of played by this code to that point. And I know this is like, we had it out at Tribal over this with Kyle. Kyle's like, well, I'd never voted you and all this stuff. But it's like, Kyle, you lied to me 2 times about votes and left me out of them. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a great friend of mine after that. But Corey hadn't, or at least if he had, it wasn't anytime recently. And, I had a lot of paranoia most of the game, but I was able to keep through that. Like Christina told me on the day Christina got voted out, she said, I just want you to know this, like, you're going to be voted out by the people that you consider friends. Like, I've heard your name mentioned a ton, and as soon as your idol's gone, you're going to get voted out. Like, that was pretty much her exact quote. Well, instead of like pushing against that, and I could have, like, what I really tried to do was try to strengthen those bonds and really connect more with those people. And I think it worked. I think that's where, because when people turned on me, they didn't turn on me specifically. They did it indirectly, almost like out of a jealousy kind of thing. Maybe not jealousy, probably not the right word, but it was almost like, well, Antonio's got to go. I know it is with Jester. With Jester, it was like, Antonio can't be here because how can I be OJ's number one if Antonio's here? And, I think it was kind of the same way. Kyle was sort of on that same line too. So I don't know. That's the best description I can give of it. But I definitely think I didn't tell a lot of lies to people. Usually if I was voting somebody, usually they knew it. You're probably one of the few exceptions to that. But I talked about this earlier, but I gave you this question and I'm like, who has talked, what names are you hearing? And I was like, if it's just those names, then we're good. And then, I'd already heard basically that you were targeting Antonio, and it was kind of like, that was like the justification in my mind, which is sort of what I use. Like, if people are lying to me, then I'm okay with lying to them, is basically the way that I played it. It's not always that way. I just voted villain.
You're freezing, OJ.
Of the season in animation, like during the middle of this season. So I definitely tried to switch that up, and I thought it was a big part of what helped me be successful, even when I wasn't having the challenge success that sometimes I have had. Let me see what I can figure out on that. Might just go to my phone after, but.
Thank you guys all.
I'll
I
work on this,
appreciate
but I
it.
don't know how much of that you heard or didn't hear.
I heard majority of it. And he's gone. And Jester, I'll always love you. Even if you
Love
push for me to go out.
Love you, Amy. Next time, no.
Next time, no.
Yeah, we're gonna play Blood versus Water soon.
All right, we're gonna give OJ a second to join back.
He's here.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Amy, if you're good, we're gonna move on to the next juror.
I'm good.
Okay.
What's going on here? I got kicked out of the bedroom, Red.
All right. So the next juror is gonna be Megan, and hopefully Chompy.
Chompy is actually at home. I'm in Boston at the moment, so he did not make the travel with me. You know him, he parties a little too hard, had a few too many, he was not safe for travel.
You too many screwdrivers?
Too many screwdrivers.
Yeah.
But him and I had a long deliberation before we left, and I said, you know what, I'll take that into consideration and then see how these final three people answer my question. So, hello, final three. Lovely to see you all in your little squares here, or rectangles, but you know, that's shape semantics. To clarify, Ed, the night I went out, I did answer you. I said I'm down to do that if Kyle is. I did delay my response, but I was at a baseball game. But it's a game, no worries. So you guys have done a really good job of talking about your strong suits. So we know in this game, you know, strategy, socializing, and competitions are all part of this, right? You got to work them somewhat together. You definitely have all hit on your strengths, but I want each of you to pick out which area you thought was probably your weakest spot and why. But you only have a minute to tell me why. And I'm legit gonna set a timer for you, totally pull a teacher move on you. And so out of social, strategy, and competitions, which one was your weakest, and like what would you have changed about it, I guess? So I'll give you a minute to think about it. And any order, it's the same question for the three of you.
If you can hear me, I'm ready whenever. Hopefully
You're
it's
good,
coming
OJ.
through.
Go ahead.
You gonna start my timer?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, well, definitely challenges for me. And it was a ton of like bonehead, stupid mistakes that I made in these challenges. Like, I felt like I performed well in them. I just tried so hard in these endurance ones, which usually balance and endurance is stuff that I'm usually pretty strong at. But I just lost concentration at moments, not unintentional. Will Smith did me wrong. It probably was after the slap. I was dancing to him on that one and dropped off. And then freaking, I don't even know what happened on the rollerballs thing. Like, I was prepared to go. I felt like 3 hours was possible on rollerballs and then just dropped off, with no warning. So definitely that, even though, I think I was able to overcome some of that, but definitely that was the weakest part. And I wish I wouldn't have made those like the phone call. That's another one that happened to me on challenge.
All right. Thank you. And yeah, the getting jiggy with it. I totally hear you on that one. All right, Ed or Jester?
I'll go next. I would say social.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, my social. I am a very social player in these games, but I feel like I did lack, especially at the beginning, and that's because I felt like I wasn't coming out of my shell, and I felt like there were so many times where I found it hard to relate to people, and that's probably because I'm a boring person. I mean, I work, I get home, I watch Netflix, I eat dinner, and I talk about Survivor, and I watch random, vote out music, and I live a simple life, and Survivor is my passion. But I feel like there were so many missed opportunities with Corey. Like one time he told me, "I'm voting you out," and that was him and us. I feel like a missed opportunity because had I decided to work with him, I feel like we could have been a dynamic duo. And I appreciated his honesty, like him coming to me like, "I'm voting you out, dude." And Christina, or even you, like, could have been more social.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ed. Last but certainly not least there, Jester. By the way, your hair looks nice. Just want to throw that out there. You all
Thank
look
you.
lovely, the three of you, but I just happen to notice yours is the biggest change. But are you ready there?
I think social too. I think in the beginning of part, because I always tell everyone that I work at nights, I sleep at days, I cannot talk. That's the pretty much it. And I even tell you, hey Megan, I think I'm in trouble because I'm have lack of social. I tried my best I can to make bonds, but it takes time to really make bonds with people because I want to get to know them in their personal life. That's how I think my social is not the greatest, but not so bad at all. It's just maybe the least out of all three. I mean, in competitions, I can be good, I can be bad. It doesn't matter. You know your strengths, so you know your weaknesses. And just for me, like I know where my weaknesses, and I think social and getting to know the people is my worst thing because I oftentimes that I don't get to know them. I even not try to talk to them at all because of my life. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, like I said to you three the night I went out, surprisingly, but hey, it's a game. There are no hard feelings there. You guys made your moves. Like I said, I said to you guys, bring it because the jury, we will be coming for you. So be proud of yourselves. Own your shit. Oh, own your stuff. My bad. I'm on vacation. So, and yeah, I will catch you guys later.
All right. Next up, we have Kyle.
Hello, final three. I think you can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I just want to clarify something to what like Jester and Ed both said. I appreciate Ed saying he was a part of the move and not saying he orchestrated the move because, like in my perception, that if I'm gonna claim any two moves in this game, I'm gonna claim Elon and Antonio's. So Jester, the reason that I'm saying that is because before I even spoke to you, that morning, I sent a confessional and I said, I'm going to take Antonio out today. Like, I'm going to do it. And I even created a group chat with Megan and Ed before we spoke to you, and Ed can attest to that. And we first said, let's do it. So I'm not going to let you 100% take ownership for that because it wasn't just your move. And the thing, how I see all of your games is I think OJ deserves the most credit when it comes to outwit. I think Ed deserves the most credit when it comes to outplay. And I think Jester deserves the most credit when it comes to outlaws. And the reason I say that is because I feel like Ed was the underdog in this game. Like he had to win immunity. I still told him that when he got voted out, like he had to win every single immunity to get to the end. And that was the case. But the problem I have with like Ed's game, and I'll get to it, is like, why were you in that position? Like, why were you in the position where you needed to win immunity, where you weren't in the correct alliances? Because to me, like, OJ's game is very impressive because, like, he was on the bottom at final six. After we voted out Antonio, that's how people perceived it. I never wanted OJ out, like, ever. But it was impressive to me because even though he should have been in the minority, he wasn't because he had those connections. So my question to Ed is, like, why do you think you were struggling so hard to be on the right side of things strategically?
I think it's because there were so many people that were willing to make big moves, and you saw how that ended for Antonio, yourself, Amy. They all went out because they were playing a strong strategic game. If I was to do that, I would be voted off, and I had to adapt. I had to use a different strategy. Unfortunately, like I said with Megan, my social game wasn't as strong, and I felt like I was never part of a main alliance because I was never considered like someone that they would take to final three. Like even you told me that you would even vote me out if I didn't win at final five. So, and I knew that I could potentially not be in your final three just because I feel like you were closer to OJ and other people. So like Jester, like you said, you would never write his name down. But I feel like I was able to work with people, but I wasn't in their end game. And that's something that I feel like it kind of relates to life where like you're in a group of friends when you're all friends, but you're not the main one. Like you're not the Rachel. I feel like I was the Janice of the season, you know, like you see her and she's annoying and she's not really like, she's just there because she's connected to Chandler, and you were kind of like my Chandler. And you know, like you see her and like you always see like, oh my God, and she said something funny and you know it cracks people up, and you think you've seen the last of her and she pops up again. And I feel like that was me towards the end where I had to win immunities. And yes, my social and strategic gameplay wasn't like up to par with like OJ and Kyle, like yourself, but that's because I didn't have these friendships that I had for a long time. I was willing to work with anyone that wanted to work with me. And if it meant to get further in this game by taking out an ally, then I had to think about it. And then if I was willing to cross that line and make it further. And I did that. And I dealt with the hand that I was dealt. And I don't regret the moves that I did because it got me here. But I feel like going into another game, I am gonna be more strategic and be more social. And I think it's hard for me because I feel like even though I'm playing these games, it's hard to relate to people and be vulnerable. And I feel like being vulnerable is hard. You know, you're putting yourself out there for people to judge you. And I feel like if anything I can take away from this game is that if I believe in myself, I can do anything. And that's why I was able to win those 4 immunities. You know, I would have been gone, but I never gave up and I persevered. Whether it wasn't the best strategic like gameplay, I still managed to squeak myself to the end. And I'm here in the final 3. And there's other players who are not here because my strategy worked. I got a little bit of luck. I bonded with the right people at the right time. And I wasn't afraid to make a move, you know? I wasn't like, if you saw my gameplay from game on, I was always like, no, like I want to be loyal. Let's not make moves. This game, I was willing to make moves. And when it really counted, I saved myself. And yeah, I wish with the help of you, I would not be here at 6 if it wasn't for you. So you do deserve that credit. And I feel like I've been fighting this whole game, and like no matter what, like it's the strategy that worked for me, and I'm proud of it.
For sure. Thanks for that, Ed. I'm gonna move on to OJ because I feel like I have a lot of thoughts about like OJ's game, but I'm gonna try and get it out in the way that I can present it. So I think a large part of what made this game fun for me was constantly debating with you and trying to get the strategic upper hand with you. So with that part, I'll say thank you. But so just to explain like why I told like Ed about the Megan vote, like why I wanted him to vote Megan. I actually wanted to tell Megan to vote Ed too, just so they can vote for each other and so I can still keep trust with both of them. But my thing was, I knew that if Ed had to win immunity or Megan had to win immunity at final 5, I don't know if she would go with me, and I needed numbers on my side at 5. And I knew Ed was someone who would never have written my name down. I didn't know the same for Megan. So I would have rather kept Ed over Megan at that point. So for your game, OJ, like I feel like I maybe missed out on a large portion of your game, and maybe others got to see that more. Because when I looked at like your game, I saw, okay, Antonio's there, like Corey's there, like, and I was there for a while. And it seemed like Antonio had like a lot of the control, but I also saw you and him as like a duo that was navigating the way forward with all these other people around. So when it came to your game, like how with Antonio were you navigating who to get rid of, how to make the right move to work out for you sitting in now?
Well, to start with, I would say this, like I agree with you a lot on what Antonio was doing. And in terms of like, Antonio does something that I could never do, which is Antonio could call you knowing that you're close with Christina and say, I want to vote Christina. And like, that is like just such a wild, like blow your mind kind of concept for me to accept. it doesn't work that great all the time. You know, sometimes it does kind of fall back on him. So like, I felt like what I was doing a lot of the time with Antonio was kind of trying to like, you know, just clean up the edges, you know, like, let's just make sure that this line is going straight. I didn't have a problem with him throwing names. I didn't have a problem, you know, really with him, you know, choosing who goes or whatever, or possibly choosing in some situations. Although I don't think that's really ever what happened. So, you know, when it comes, like, let's say Amy, for instance, like, we were, you know, I think our whole SWAT tribe was much stronger than it was perceived to be going in. Like, the 5 of us were voting together and never really doubted, at least internally, whether we were going to vote together. But the other side didn't know that. So in terms of who was going to vote, you know, with us, like, I don't think Antonio was ever able to do that. Like, I don't think Antonio could have gone to somebody on the other side and said, hey, we need your vote. I think that me and you were the people that could do that, you know, socially and strategically, to say, hey, Jester, like, you know, with me, like, hey, Jester, we need you to come on. Like, Jester was flipping immediately on that, regardless of who it was, I think, because he trusted us more, you know, wanted to work with us more. Even really with you, like, Jester working with you was something that, I'm not going to say that like your connection wasn't real, because I think it was, but all that was like me saying, Jester, you need to connect to Kyle, because I think this is an end game that makes sense to us. So like, you being able to pull in somebody like Christina, and Jester being able to pull in, you know, being able to pull in Jester, like, that's the way that making these moves possible happen. And, you know, as you go down the line, I think that what ends up happening is, aside from probably, crap, I'm losing, says I'm unstable again, but aside from probably the Amy one, which, you know, you basically picked the name on that. And, you know, I mean, or you and Corey did, I don't know what exactly the reason was. Obviously, you know, I just wanted it to be somebody that Austin doesn't expect, you know, whatever that is. And, you know, kind of pushing those pieces in place was really where I wanted to be on that, in terms of the time before Antonio was gone. You know, but I definitely think, you know, that became a much different, like, my role in the game was much different after that. But I think you could go through each part. And I think the gap you're talking about is basically the Alon vote to the Antonio vote, which is like the gap in time where we really weren't, you know, really connecting that much or really talking through that much. But I kind of knew you still wanted to work with me. So it was like almost a situation where I was sort of playing that up, like, look, I'll get over it, but, you know, you just got to give me some time, or you got to give me some votes, and, you know, all this situation. And I would talk to Jester more about it. I know those things were getting relayed there. So I think there was definitely some gamesmanship there. I agree with you completely on what you said to start with. To me, like, you know, when we were having those conversations, the true strategic ones, I feel like, you know, better than anybody where I was at in terms of like reading what was going on and all those scenarios. And I think if anybody did see the game better than me, it was you. But I think it was close. Like, I think we were always kind of like, you know, trying a little bit of one-upsmanship there. And, you know, look, I don't know. Did I know that you were still not going to vote me? Like, in my mind, mostly yes. You know, 4 is a much different story though, and it's much more complicated at 4 for everybody. And I think I did feel like the rest of the group left was less likely to vote me at 4 than you were, other than Ed, obviously. But I don't know. I know I'm not really answering the question anymore, and I kind of forgot what it was. But basically, I do think that literally every vote with Antonio too, and I'm not trying to discredit Antonio at all, because I think Antonio was playing a great game. But in terms of and Antonio has better reason than people give him credit for too. Like, he would know, you know, it's almost always him, but usually that's right because of the way he plays. You know, he always thinks it's going to be him, but he's, you know, the paranoia, but it's real in a lot of situations that he can read things that were going bad. And, you know, like me and you on the Miranda vote, like, we were definitely on the same page, and probably the only ones on the same page of like, this is a terrible idea. Like, this is a garbage idea and we have to scrap it. And And, you know, whether that was me or you or whoever it was, and I know you ended up finding out that it was me, but however those things happen, like, you know, those parts I think are pieces that where an Antonio or somebody like that, I like as great as he is, I do think that I was still playing a large part of that strategic role for us as a duo. And, you know, did I think Antonio was playing a better game than me when he got voted out? Yes, but not by much, is what I would say. Like, I think he was playing better than me, but slightly better.
For sure. And I do give a large credit to you when it comes to like the strategic portion. Because even when because I told Ed, do not tell anyone that I told you to vote for Megan. And the first thing Jester says to me is OJ's mad at me because he knows I told Ed. I'm like, how the hell does he know that? So I think you did very, very well in like
Nobody told me
pinpointing.
that, just so you know, until later. After you were voted out, Ed told me, but nobody told me before.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, how does he know? Because your strategic game just impresses me. I think out of the three sitting here. And then I'll move on to Jess. I had a question for you. Um, so I was gonna ask you a different thing, but I think you answered it throughout. So one of the things that you said throughout this tribal is like I think you flipped a lot, and I do get flipping. If flipping is necessary for your game, do it. Like if you feel you're on the bottom of an alliance, do it. Like I came into this game and my main goals was to have a strong winner, play a strong game, and get a good placement. And so I fully understand like doing what you have to do. For your game, how did it make sense to flip so much? Do you feel like it's because you wouldn't have got to the end otherwise, or you would have got voted out earlier, or like why was the case for like so much flipping?
Flipping for me because I came to the merge with Swap Monica was not trusting me at all. I came to the merge right smack in the middle, right smack there. And like, if I would trust the Swap Monica tribe to move forward, I'm not gonna be here in final three. So I got to flip from the move forward that I have to flip with the Swap Chandler tribe to vote for Amy, to vote for Miranda. And when it's times to get the numbers go down, I see that Antonio, I'm the fourth of Antonio. I tell that to you that using that idol to OJ and Corey, even though he knows that OJ has an idol and he can use it for himself, he didn't use it to me. That's just me thinking that, okay, I'm the fourth on this freaking group. I gotta get out of it. So the moment I had a chance to flip, I flip in the right way. And it did work for me in my favor. It did really work in my favor just to make here in the final three. And the final five setup, I tell that I have the perfect going to the end because every single one of you are telling I'm bringing the final three. Doesn't mean that I'm the GOAT, but like I make sure that I talk to every single one of you and make sure that I'm okay with you. And when it comes to you, it was really last minute decision, really, because I don't know who to go for, and I don't really know. And but like I want to stick to my number one, and that gives me the impression that I gotta stick with OJ at this point, because if I don't stick with them on the final four, it could damage me and his relationship, and he could might take Corey. And I don't even know if it's a vote at that time, like fire making. I gotta make sure that my number one and thinking that I'm their number one bring me to the final four or final three when it comes to final fire making. When it comes to vote, then I was not the vote. I was not even questioned. Even Ed said like, "Oh, we're thinking about you," but the moment the last minute, oh, I'm thinking voting OJ and Ed because thinking voting Corey and OJ, and I was like, oh, I'm safe because I make sure to like talk every single one and plead my case to make it there. And I think I did a pretty good job to even make it to this end in terms that I tell everyone that my name is throwing around like crazy as heck. That's why I did all the flipping, because with all the lies and deceit, I gotta do the same thing.
For sure. And then I just have one overall question. I know I'm taking so long, but I just have one overall question for all of you. if you had to compare yourself to an animal based on your gameplay, what would you compare yourself to and why? I'll start with Ed.
I would say chameleon. A chameleon changes colors, and just like my hair, they change a lot of colors. I am wearing purple. But yeah, I mean, a chameleon adapts to any situation, any danger, and I feel like I did that. When it didn't go my way and people were blindsided who were my allies, I didn't just like, oh, I'm not going to work with this person because they left me out of the vote. I was willing to work with anybody that wanted to work with me, even if I wasn't their main ally. I needed to get through a vote. I needed to make it further. I needed to work with people that I knew I wasn't going to be in danger and protect allies and honor promises with Megan and like giving her that advantage. I know you asked for it, and I literally was like, do I give it to Kyle? But I felt like you were in a stronger position and Megan was in danger if I didn't give her that. So I had to adapt, and chameleons adapt, and I feel like I did that throughout this game. Whether it wasn't the most flashiest game, but I did have to do what I had to do to get myself here. And I'm honestly really proud, and yeah, shout out to the chameleons out there.
Thanks, Ed. I'm gonna go with OJ.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a story with mine to get there. But when I was a kid, my neighbor used to have this German Shepherd that was a police dog, and it was like the nicest, sweetest dog. Like 90% of the time, like if you were nice around it, like if nothing bad happened, like it was there. You could pet it. You could have like kids could be around it, whatever. Like it was perfectly fine with that. But anytime like there was something threatening or something that went against it or went against somebody that it was close to, then that thing was like the most vicious, like, and was able to go, kind of straight for the throat for whatever it was. I think that probably is at least the way that I see the way that I played, which was like, it's kind of always like there as a presence and threatening and doing, like always engaged, but then mostly as long as I was on your side, you were going to be okay. But then whenever that shifted, I felt like, that's kind of the way that I played overall.
For sure. Thanks, OJ. And then Jess.
Personal life or game wise, I don't say this thing, but I'm thinking I'm a king cobra. This is just not me snaking everyone. King Cobra when when okay, let's be real this one. King Cobra when on their shell, like on their shell, they're quiet, don't want to get bothered. Once you bother and get the heck out of me, I'll strike you. I'll bite you no matter what, and I'll poison you in a way that you feel bad. And that's what I did in my personal life. Like, if people, especially in LGBT community, it's really hard to get to accept. Like, these people judge you no matter what. Don't come for my shelter. That's my shelter. That's my community. Come to my shelter, judge me, I'll strike, and you feel bad. And that's what I did in this game. If you're against me, or I'm doing this Russell hands, if you're against me or not, but like, if you're against me, I'll strike you and you're gonna go out in this game. That's why I, personal life, game wise, I'm a King Cobra, but if we're on live, doesn't mean I snake everyone in this game. It's just how I represent my life as an animal. King Cobra.
Awesome. Thank you, three. I have a lot of respect for all of your games, so it's not going to be an easy decision. So finish off strong. Peace.
All right. And then last but not least, we have Corey.
Hi guys, how are you all? Definitely you guys have played great games. I've loved listening to your answers and to the questions you guys been asked. You guys all deserve to be here in the final three. So I'll just make a quick question for you all. It's already been 2.5 hours. But imagine it's just a final two and you guys win it and you're on the jury. Who here would you guys vote for to win? And like why? Like why should they win?
I'll go first. I would probably vote for Jester, just because I feel like a lot of people, just like myself, underestimated him, and I feel like they saw him as someone that probably wouldn't make the merge. And I feel like if we had gone to another tribal council, you know, you best believe I would have been like, let's get rid of him. But I think just like me, I think he persevered and he's sitting here, and I think we all deserve to win. But I think he played a great game, and I think I'm a sucker for a story, and I feel like Jester does have a story. We all have a story, but I just feel like I feel like he overcame obstacles, and I feel like other people like OJ kind of like was always in like this position where like didn't really have to like really like struggle, you know? So I feel like I did see more of a struggle with Jester, just like myself, but I would have to go with Jester.
Whoever wants to go
Well,
next.
yeah, I can. I'll say this, and I told him this before. And look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like Ed, I respect your game a ton. I respect what you did and the way that you fought through those challenges. Like seriously, we all love Survivor doing this, but you could tell every single time like how much it mattered to you, and that means something to me when I play these things. But I will say this for me as a juror, like what I look for in these things is more about what buttons are you pressing and at what time and where do you fall on those votes. I understand that I wouldn't expect Jester to win against Ed if it was a final two, if it were me. But I would probably vote for Jester because I know how involved he was. I think that Jester was the most important vote in this game the entire time. I think he was the vote that mattered the most, more times than anybody else. Now, I don't necessarily think he was like we talked about, like, I don't know that he was pushing it that direction or whatever else, but I think in terms of the majority of the jurors that are on this jury, I think that like Jester could point to several times where he pushed the buttons, you know, at least in terms of being that vote, whether it was a flip or whatever, that ultimately led to them going. So for that reason, like that is something that, you know, I would have voted for Russell twice too. You know what I mean? Like I understand the problems with what Jester did, but at the same time, I do think that, you know, at this point, even though I wouldn't necessarily expect him to win it, I legitimately would have voted Jester if I was sitting in these shoes, I think.
I want to touch up with both their games because I mean they're saying to me it's gonna be like, you know, I'm moving Ed's game, it's pretty much surviving. That his game. He survives the heck out of this game. Even though he knows this game is he's been targeted, he's been, you know, like struggling a lot in terms with me too. He's been surviving and proving himself that I can do this. That water thing above the head, I was underestimating. I think Ed can't do that, like really. But he pushed my buttons to even push forward, and of course I got DQ'd. With OJ's game, I think OJ's honesty game is one of the best thing I can say, because OJ's game, he relies to his connections, he relies to his social, he likes to make bonds. Even though that these people are flipping to him, lying to him, give him a day, he would work with you again. And that's how I see from OJ's. Even though I yell too much to OJ, it's crazy how he wants to work with me again. He wants to work with the people that he relies on with the vote. In terms of voting, if I'm in a jury, I would vote for OJ, because I think OJ is strategically reading throughout the game. It's just spectacular. It's crazy good. Like, maybe because he has a lot of experiences in the future. I'm not saying he's old, but he has experience. But but like in terms of experience wise and reading people minds, he's good at it. So I would vote for OJ.
Thank you guys for your answers. And again, congratulations. It was nice getting to meet all of you guys. Ed, great game. It was such we couldn't work together, but we were just against each other. Jester, is great to meet another Filipino in this game. Love you, and OJ, you're one of the best allies I've ever had in a game. And so yeah, good luck to you three.
All right. Well, the jurors have all had their say and all had a chance to ask their questions. We're now going to go to closing speeches. Try to keep these pretty short. OJ, you're up first.
Gosh, this has been a bear. I mean, this has been such a long night with this too, and I know we've treaded and retreaded over a lot of these parts. But I do think from a strategic and a social standpoint, I think that I played the strongest game. I think that, Ed touched on one of these parts, like talked about it being easy, and it's like, it surprises me sometimes too. Like, don't get me wrong on that part, but I felt like, coming in and like, where I was able to position myself and with the people that were truly, even if they like, when Jester talked about that, like locking back in after he lies to me and, he has those things where we get to a Final Four vote where Jester said between me and Ed that, he thought that I would win the game over that, but yet he was still willing to vote with me on that occasion, to at least give me a shot at fire or whatever that might be. Like all those parts, I think, play into this, and I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy with the way that I played. I'm confident in the game that I played. I think that it wasn't easy. I mean, this game was a mental toll on me, and I felt more challenged strategically than I probably have ever felt in a game in this season, which I did not expect going into it. But, the early parts of this merge, the people that I felt like I was battling strategic with were so strong. Kyle, like after that, and the back and forth that we had there. I mean, all of these pieces that went into this puzzle and the way that all these things seem to happen. Like, I felt like if I could get to this point, I had a really good argument based on what I did on every single vote, on every single round. And, yes, like I lack some of the challenges, but honestly, like, I don't think if you take that away, like if you take the challenges by themselves away and you still just look at the votes, like nothing about that really changes what happens when we get here and what happens through this part. And I feel really confident about where I stood in those relationships strategically, and the bonds that I made. And, regardless of what happens here, like I got a lot of friends, that are coming out of this, and two of them are sitting next to me up here, and I hope we're able to stay in touch, throughout all this thing. But I love Survivor. I love Matt. All the hosts have been great with this thing. This has been a fantastic first season. I'm really proud of that too. So just having this opportunity and going through this has really meant a lot to me. So I appreciate it, but I do want to win. I want to win this thing bad, and I think that I played the best game.
Okay, next up we have Ed.
Okay, let's fight one last time. I think I played the best game standing here on the final three. And that's not just me talking out of my ass. It's because I do believe it. I feel like I had to play a more risky game. Like I had to overcome so many things, so many obstacles. The essence of Survivor is literally, the name says it, Survivor. And I feel like almost being like, penalized for having to win these immunities. Like, I had to. Like, what am I gonna do? Just lay there and just be like, oh, don't vote me out? Like, I'm gonna fight. As long as you have a fighting chance, all those people, Antonio, Amy, Miranda, Christina, Austin, Kyle, who would have done the same because they were targets to win those immunities to get themselves to the end and have a fighting chance, to plead their case. I did that. I wasn't scared to make a move when the opportunity presented itself. I had to overcome obstacles. My line wasn't straightforward, like, oh, like I'm just in control, like I'm playing very strategic. Survivor is not just about being strategic, it's about being social. It's about being able to connect with people and making moves at the right time and adapting. Adapting is very important because if you only play a certain way, eventually you're going to get targeted. And I feel like I had to overcome more things in this game. Like, my game might have been not as flashy or perfect, but I was able to adapt and get myself here. No one dragged me. No one like told me I was a goat. I earned my spot every single one of those immunities. And honestly, I'm proud of myself. I feel like this has been one of the most emotional, like mentally taxing games that I've played. And there were times when I thought I was gone. I was toasted, and I persevered. Survivor is about persevering, and not just in this game, but about in real life. And I feel like as a New Yorker, watching friends, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play this game. Just watching them, like having those stories about like overcoming any obstacle. I feel like in this game, yes, it would have been easy to be at the top and not make any moves, but like the game just took a different turn for me, and I was willing to adapt, and I still managed to get to the end when even when people were targeting me, when people wanted me out, I never gave up, and I'm not giving up even till now. Like, I want to earn your vote, and if you guys think that I did that, like I play the best game, then vote for me. Um, I have no regrets. I played my heart out, and I played there physically and giving 100% in every challenges, making those bonds to get me here. And I'm proud of myself. And no matter what happens, um, it's been a fun game. It's been a great experience. And coming into this game, I didn't think I could get to the end, but like just going, taking it day by day, and just like knowing that as long as I was in the game, there was hope. And I'm sitting here. I did that. I defied the odds. And I'm very proud of myself. I'm proud of OJ and I'm proud of Jester. We accomplished something that is not easy at all. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you. Thank you, jury. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, hosts. Thank you for a great season. And yeah.
First of all, again, thank you for the hosting team for even running this game. Such a great pleasure. Thank you for the jury for listening to all of us. I know it's pretty hard at this point, and especially it's way at night now. Thank you for everyone, really. Thank you for everything that you have done to us. I just want to tell that this game is Survivor, and I survive. I've been struggling for the first day at this game that my name is out there. And as the moving fast forwards, I find my footing and find myself how to manage to the end. And on the merge boat, I always tell that my boat is the important boat out of everyone's boat because my vote is not undetermined and doesn't know where to go. But I vote the people that I want to make me farther in the game. I vote with people that would willing to work with me, and vote for the people that would not work with me and will struggle me just to be in the end. I was even telling Matt, if friends is a theme, I don't know about friends, but every time I don't know about the theme, I'll go far in the game. And it did go far. I make to the finals, and I'm always hoping in this final tribal council, if I'm there, I am the one to speak first, and I'm the one that would speak last. And I'm the one who speak first, and I am the one who speak last. That's a luck, and that's a survivor gods, because I want you all guys to hear me first and hear me last in the very end of this game. Thank you, and good luck to everyone.
Okay. Jester, Ed, OJ, tonight you want to see your name written down. Jury, you are voting for a winner. We'll come back once we have all the votes.